Hey everyone, it's Melody Snowflake, and welcome to the first episode of the Steven Universe Character Analysis podcast. I know this got uploaded way later than the intended scheduled date, but, well, we're finally here. And before I begin, I'd just like to say thank you for all your support to everyone who has supported the idea of this podcast. And yeah, some of my friends will be joining me on some of these episodes, but today it's just me. So, before I begin, I like to say I'm not exactly the kind of person who normally analyzes characters. Usually, I just watch a show or read a book and just love the characters the way they are. I don't really have any characters I particularly hate. And, everyone is flawed. Everyone has their good points and bad points. And I just love all of it. But in Steven Universe, that's when everything kind of changed. Well, at least in the show itself. In other fandoms, I'm still kind of just, taking everything as it is. But with Steven Universe, there's been lots of controversy and debate thrown around about one particular character that has actually made me question a lot of things. Because she is my favorite character, but she did do some things that got people to think, she's abusive. She's not that great of a person. And seeing all those comments, even if they weren't directed directly at me, I started feeling a little bit, worried. And I started getting thrown into a spiral. What if she really is a bad person? What if I'm a bad person for liking her? Is she really that good of a person? Do I really have the right to like her the way I... Okay, I'm going into my own personal spirals. But you get the picture. In fact, this character that I'm talking about is none other than Lapis Lazuli, the character we'll be discussing today. And by the way, we'll be making a lot more episodes on Lapis, so this is not the first time we're going to be talking about her, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. Because if you remember, I did make a couple of videos talking about her a while back in March. And that was during a time when I was in the middle of such a loop that I discussed earlier. I didn't exactly know what to think of her. I loved her, but there was all this argument against her, and I didn't know how to feel, and I was struggling mentally, and I just... Making those videos, I guess, was a kind of coping mechanism for me, just so I could talk about my favorite character and, express my thoughts at the time. But a lot of time has passed since March, and I've had a lot more time to think, and let's just say it's been a roller coaster ride on its own. I wanted the first episode of this podcast to be about Lapis, and one of the reasons it took so long is because, well, I was still figuring stuff out myself. I didn't want to give anything factually wrong, and I wanted to be fair to arguments and everything. So, today we're going to be talking about Lapis, and we're going to be discussing about whether or not she was abusive. And let me just get this out of the way. Abusive is a very, very strong word. People who have been in abusive relationships, it's not good. It's just not good. So, abuse is a very strong word to use, even though I've seen it casually thrown around sometimes. But it shouldn't be something that we take lightly, which is personally why I've been so stressed, because people have been accusing Lapis of being abusive. And, I don't condone abusive behavior, but I love Lapis, so that's what's been bugging me so much, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, I know lots of people out there will be thinking, look, Melody, if you're going to say she's not abusive, then you're wrong. She literally trapped Jasper under the ocean and, wanted her to feel the pain that she had been experiencing. How's that not abusive, Melody? And yeah, I can see your point. I can see why some people would think of her as abusive. Plus, the whole fact that malachite is a fusion that represents a toxic relationship doesn't help matters either. Because when you think of toxic relationships, and when you think of the line where Lapis said, "I miss Jasper," which we'll get to in a little bit, you start thinking, abusive relationship parallels. Oh no, it must have been abusive. But there's actually nothing in the show that outright tells you that it is abusive. I can see why some people might interpret certain things as that, but if you take a closer look, it really isn't as dark as it may seem. And we're going to get to all this in a little bit. But first off, let me just say that toxic relationships does not necessarily equal abusive relationships. Abusive relationships, well, they are a form of toxic relationships, but there are other types as well. And it's not just, love relationships. I'm talking relationships in general here. So when you're talking about toxic relationship, it can be a toxic friendship when, two people think everything's going well, but you're just hurting each other without realizing it. Or, when you're enemies and that's just toxic. Or it can be any other form of toxic. It doesn't have to be abusive. So yes, Malachite is a toxic relationship. It was always a power struggle. But it wasn't abusive. And if it makes any of the people who are standing on Jasper's side of the story here, no, I don't think she's abusive either. So don't worry. So, is Lapis abusive? Well, she did take her anger out on Jasper. She did want her to feel the pain that she had been experiencing for a very long time. The whole being trapped in a mirror, being mistaken for a crystal gem by her own allies, right? Then, going home and then being dragged back to Earth and then being locked up again and then escaping and then being dragged back down yet again and being asked to fuse when she didn't want to at first. Yeah, that's a lot to go through, and this mostly took place, at least in terms of the mirror, over a span of thousands of years. So I can see why she's frustrated, why she was at her limit, why she couldn't take it anymore. At the same time, you know that Jasper wanted to use the Malachite fusion to attack the crystal gems, and that includes Stephen, who freed Lapis from her prison. So it wasn't just to protect Stephen. I get to people's arguments here. It wasn't just to protect Stephen. But it also wasn't just to let Jasper suffer. It wasn't just that. So it was kind of two sides of, the same thing. It's the same one action, but with two motives. And one can be considered noble, and the other one can be considered wrong. So let's break it down. Lapis was done being mistreated. She was done being held back, being restrained, being, basically just, mistreated. And she was so done with that. And the people, the gems who had been doing that to her were homeworld gems. And yeah, I get it. She was mad at the crystal gems for, not helping. But that was before she realized that they probably had no idea that, she was in the mirror in the first place. She thought that they knew. And it was never brought up again. But you can see by the way she's interacting that she either forgave them or realized that, yeah, they didn't know. And her main anger was directed towards the homeworld gems anyway. Even Rebecca Sugar said in a recent interview at San Diego Comic-Con that Lapis was in a very hard situation where she didn't know who to direct her anger towards. So, in this situation, Lapis concluded that, most of her pain and struggles have been caused by homeworld gems, and she was done with it. She had enough. So she wanted them to feel what they had put her through. I'm pretty sure she didn't mean to target Jasper specifically. It's just like, oh, you're Jasper, I hate you, and I'm going to make you suffer. It's not like that. Jasper happened to be the homeworld gem there at the time who was trying to hurt her, and she was at her limit. Imagine being bullied very hard by a whole bunch of people, and you had enough. And one day, this new kid comes along and starts bullying you just like the rest. But because you've had enough of the bullying, you fight back. You slap them. And yeah, it's not right to slap them, just like it's not right to trap Jasper on the ocean, let her suffer the way you have. But you did it because you were done. You had enough. So even though, yes, what she did was wrong, I wouldn't say it was abusive. She was intending to fight back, and yeah, she had the right to do that. I hear you, people who are saying that she had the right to fight back. But I also hear you in saying, yeah, it was still wrong. And yeah, it was her letting out her feelings because she had enough, but it wasn't healthy. And yes, it wasn't. Even Lapis admitted it later on in the episode Alone at Sea, when Jasper asked her to fuse again. She said, and I quote, "What we had wasn't healthy. I never want to feel like I felt with you ever again. So just go." Yeah, I have her quotes memorized. I apologize. But anyway, yeah, she said that. And so she knows it wasn't healthy. She realized later on that, yeah, it wasn't the healthiest way to let her emotions out, to deal with them. And it wasn't right to have done that. She literally said, I was terrible to you. So she knows that it wasn't right, that she did wrong by doing what she did. She knows that she did hurt Jasper, even though she was fighting back, even though she was just done and wanted to let her emotions out, even though she wanted to protect Stephen. I can see the argument that she still did something wrong. However, I don't think she's abusive. And looking on the brighter side of things, as I always like to look at both sides, she was just trying to fight back. She was also, apart from just what I just talked about, she was also doing it so Jasper wouldn't use the fusion to hurt Stephen in particular. I wouldn't blame her for not doing it for the other crystal gems particularly. I mean, Stephen was the one who saved her, and the crystal gems did want to, you can't deny that they did, during the whole Mirror Gem and Ocean Gem arc, they did want to stop her from leaving because they thought she was dangerous. So you could see why she would be a little bit upset with the Crystal Gems, or at the very least not want to do anything for them specifically. But Stephen saved her. And by the way, I'm not saying that she hates the Crystal Gems or she's mean to them. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I can see why she wouldn't feel an attachment to them, and why she would do it particularly for Stephen. So, yeah, she was doing it to protect Stephen. She was standing up for the whole, she's standing up for her rights. She was standing up for Stephen. And at the same time, the wrong part of it is that she wanted Jasper to feel the pain she's been suffering. And wanting someone to feel the pain that you've been through isn't abusive. I wouldn't say it's abusive. I'd say it's wrong. I'd say she was taking revenge on Jasper. And I'd say, yes, it was toxic. It was a power struggle. But I wouldn't go as far as calling it abusive. Abusive is a very strong word. And Lapis didn't exactly gain enjoyment out of doing that, doing that. Yes, I hear you. She said, I liked taking everything out on you. And that's the line that makes people think she enjoyed abusing, quote-unquote, abusing Jasper. But let me just put that line straight here. I think what she really meant was she liked taking it out. She liked letting out her anger after all this time. Imagine holding in all your anger and finally be able to let it out, even in an unhealthy way. Wouldn't you like that feeling? That release that you feel? She didn't enjoy making Jasper suffer, but she enjoyed knowing that, she's letting it out. That's what she enjoyed about it. That's what she liked about it. I wouldn't even call it enjoyment. She just liked letting it out because she'd been holding it in for so long. And yes, she wanted Jasper to feel the pain that she'd been through. It was her way of saying, yeah, I've been through a lot. You think that was fun? Why don't you try it? I want you to, just, she said, now you're my prisoner and I'm never letting you go. And that's also another quote that makes people think that she's abusive. But I think it's just you treat me like that, I'll treat you like that and show you what it's like. See if you like it. She enjoyed, I keep using that word by mistake, but she liked letting her anger out because it was good to feel the release. And yes, she wanted to let Jasper feel what she'd been feeling because she couldn't take it anymore. But I wouldn't say she liked having Jasper suffer. In no way did she say that that was good. She said she was terrible to Jasper. She said it wasn't healthy. She never once said that she liked seeing her in pain. She liked taking it out. She never said she liked seeing her in pain. She wanted her to feel it. She didn't say she liked it. She liked it. She just wanted her to feel it because she had enough of, what people have been doing to her, and she wanted someone else to feel that. And she never said she liked seeing her in pain. She just said she liked taking it out on Jasper. And she follows that up by saying, I needed to. I hated you. And that line, I hated you, might also, now that I think about it, cause people to think that she liked seeing her in pain. But no, once again, she never said she liked seeing Jasper in pain. She just said she liked taking it out because she, needed that release. She's been suffering for so long. Once again, for those who are screaming, that doesn't make it right. I know. I never said it was. But at the same time, I can't blame her. And by the way, that whole I needed you, I hated you line was just her saying how she felt about Jasper. She needed to hold her down so that, she wouldn't use it to hurt Steven, the fusion, I mean. And, well, she just told Jasper that she hated her, because, I mean, she really did, because, the whole, trapping her and stuff thing. And by the way, for those saying Lapis decided to fuse with Jasper and, drag her down when she could have done anything else, let's just say I've been doing a lot of thinking on this, and just because someone could have done something better doesn't necessarily mean that they, would have been in the mindset to think of a better way at the time. Plus, the whole fusion was Jasper's idea in the first place. And I think if you look back at the earlier parts of the episode, Lapis was scared to fight back. So she was probably scared to refuse the fusion in the first place. But because she had to fuse, she decided to make the most of her situation and just fight back in whatever way she can. And it was kind of fitting to think, if you think about it, because I think people are thinking she chose it deliberately, because it was so fitting that she just couldn't refuse the fusion, and she just so happened to use that same fusion to trap Jasper like she had been trapped. And yes, I can see why people would think it was deliberate, but don't forget, the fusion was Jasper's idea. Yeah, Lapis agreed to it, but it's probably because she just couldn't think straight at the time, or she was just too afraid to refuse the fusion. Plus, I heard an argument from one of my friends, well, not an argument, just a point that one of my friends made, and it was that, here's a third possibility, she was just acting upon instinct. And when you're in a stressful situation, that's what you do. So it's either one of these three. But she didn't think, I'm going to fuse with her on purpose and then trap her. I think she agreed to the fusion and then later decided to trap her. Or even if you want to argue that, yeah, she did agree to it on purpose just to trap Jasper, she and she could have done it any other way. Once again, she probably saw no way out of it in the first place because she was too afraid to refuse the fusion. So she decided to just take it and agree with it and just go with it. Now, I hear the people arguing that she still could have done something differently, that she decided to do it on purpose, not because she was scared, but out of spite. And I can see why you would think that. We never really see her thought process. So there are lots of explanations to why she decided to agree to fuse with Jasper and then later trap her. One reason could just be because she just felt it was the most efficient way. Besides, Lapis isn't a fighting gem after all. Jasper is. Lapis can fight with her water powers, but then again, she was probably too afraid, like I said, to refuse the fusion. Or she could have just found that it was the most efficient way to hold Jasper back. Because, once again, apart from the whole wanting her to feel the pain thing, she did also want to protect Steven. And so that would probably be, in her mind, the most efficient way of doing it, if you want to say she did it on purpose. Because if she fought Jasper, who knows what the odds are? Plus, she was scared to fight them. She did say earlier in the episode, that's why we can't fight them. So, my personal opinion is that she was probably scared, or if she wasn't, she was just doing it because it was the most efficient way, at least in her mind. But she wasn't doing it just to be like, oh, I purely want Jasper just to suffer. And yeah, it wasn't just that. Once again, she also wanted to protect Steven. So yes, wanting Jasper to feel the pain that she felt is wrong. And she wanted to, and yeah, it was wrong of her to do that. But she also wanted to protect Steven. So there are two sides to this story. And I don't think she's abusive. I agree it was a toxic relationship. And, and one more point. The whole part when she said, I miss Jasper, some people might be able to interpret that as, yeah, that's abusive because she missed her. She missed hurting her. That's not really the case because she follows that up with, we've been fused for so long. When Steven asked what, that's her answer. She said, we've been fused for so long, which clearly speaks to me as she just wasn't used to being unfused. They've been fused for so long that she's just gotten used to, having Jasper there. And so it was just she just wasn't used to being out of the fusion. It was something familiar to her, something she had gotten familiar with. And it was just, she missed that feeling because it was familiar. And by the way, another argument to support that she didn't enjoy seeing Jasper suffer, she actually, hated the experience. So I wouldn't say she enjoyed it. Also, for those who are saying that Lapis doesn't even realize that what she did was wrong, well, she did say it was bad and that she never want to feel like that again. So, if that doesn't count as knowing what she did was wrong, then I don't know what is. So, in conclusion, Lapis isn't abusive. She did do something that was wrong, and she did want someone to feel the pain that they've put her through. And I can see why people are mad for Lapis for this, because if you want me to be honest, I have to admit that Jasper isn't the pure cause. She's just one of the causes of Lapis's, of what she went through. But Lapis was just at her limit at that point, even though Jasper was just, a small fraction of the actual whole picture that hurt her. She just was at her limit. Once again, that whole example with the bullies, yeah. But I can see why people would say, yeah, Lapis hurt Jasper. Jasper didn't exactly deserve that. To be fair, Jasper did, attack and stuff in the first place, and she did force her back and lock her up and, all that stuff. So you can't really say Jasper didn't hurt her, but I can see why, because people think that people feel that Jasper wasn't the full, cause of it, and that's why Lapis shouldn't have taken it all out on Jasper, because it wasn't all Jasper. But once again, the whole example of the bullies, she was just at her limit, and she just wanted someone to feel the pain that Homeworld has put her through. So in conclusion, once again, I don't think she's abusive. I admit that what she did was wrong, and the reason she did it was because, she was just at her limit. She couldn't take it anymore, and she also did it to protect Steven. So, yeah, she's actually one of my favorite characters, and I'm really glad I got to discuss her. For those who want me to talk about Jasper's side of the story, I'm actually going to do that really soon in one of the next few episodes, because she's a really fascinating character. Also, one more thing. I might have a few friends joining me in future episodes, and the sound quality might not be the best unless I can find out a way to record an actual call, like, the actual sound in the call instead of just recording and, having the call in speaker mode. But yeah, the sound quality might not be the best when I'm on a call with someone, but we're going to still do it anyway. I love talking about Lapis, and I think she's a great person. And even Rebecca Sugar said once in Steven Universe podcast that Lapis is someone whose kindness has been taken advantage of a lot of times. And honestly, that just proves to me that she is, and she's meant to be, a good person who made a few mistakes, albeit considered big ones. And yeah, I hear people saying, yeah, the whole thing with Peridot, and I'll talk about that in a separate video about Lapis. But yes, I think overall that she is a good person. And yes, what she did was wrong, but just because someone made a bad decision doesn't mean they're a bad person. And I just love her as a character, and I think she's fascinating. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Steven Universe Character Analysis Podcast. I hope you guys are having an awesome day, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye!